Hello everyone and welcome to the Ticker.com's news channel on YouTube. On this channel, we review stock markets and discuss financial news, market trends, and economic data from Wall Street to Global Street. So let's dive in. We begin our review of the global economy with key releases in the US, Europe, China, India, and Japan. In the U.S., investors reacted to two key economic updates, housing markets and the PCE index. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, an alternative measure of inflation that accounts for product substitution by consumers, increased by 0.3% on the month and by 2.4% from a year ago. The overall and core inflation measure accelerated on a monthly basis from December as consumers switched from goods purchases to services. The inflation data met investors' expectations, but the report also signaled that policymakers most likely will wait for another 3 months before lowering interest rates. On the housing front, seasonally adjusted new home sales in January rose 1.5% to 661,000, driven by lower mortgage rates in the month. The seasonally adjusted new home sales advanced for the second month in a row after dropping to an annual pace of 607,000 in November. The median sale price of new houses sold in January was $420,700, higher than $413,100 in December, but lower than $432,100 a year ago. The housing market report confirmed affordability issues and tight market conditions are not likely to go away anytime soon. Durable goods orders in January highlighted stable economic backdrop after excluding volatile defense and aircraft orders. The U.S. economic growth was revised downward in the fourth quarter to 3.2% from the preliminary estimate of 3.3%, following the 4.9% annual pace of increase in the third quarter. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis reported Wednesday. For the full year 2023, GDP growth in the second estimate was unrevised at 2.5% compared to 1.9% in 2022. In Europe, inflation eased in the Eurozone, Germany, France, and Spain, but stayed above the 2% target set by the European Central Bank. Retail sales in Germany decreased and jobless rate edged up to 5.9%, but payrolls in France held stable in the fourth quarter. Swiss GDP growth slowed for the third year in a row to 0.8% in 2023, and the UK home prices rose in February after falling in previous 11 months in a row. In Asia, manufacturing activities shrank for the fifth month in a row in February in China, and Japan's jobless rate eased to 2.4% in January from 2.5% in December. Moreover, Japan's inflation eased less than expected in January to 2.2% after averaging 3.1% in 2023. Retail sales also fell, or rather slowed, to 2.3% in the month from the upwardly revised 2.4% in December. In India, fourth quarter GDP growth surpassed market expectations to 8.4%, a six-quarter high, prompting the government to lift fiscal year 2024 economic growth estimate to 7.6% from 7.3%. Let us review key events in global bond, currency, and commodity markets last week. The yield on the 10-year U.S. Treasury stayed above 4.2% after PCE inflation accelerated, but it also confirmed that interest rates are likely to stay higher at least until June. Gold edged higher by 0.3% to $2,040 an ounce after investors held on to expectations of a rate cut as early as June. WTI crude oil increased 3% to $80 a barrel, and traders looked ahead to the OPEC Plus meeting in March and awaited developments on the voluntary production cuts to stabilize the oil market. TTF natural gas prices in Europe rose 12% to €25.10 per megawatt hour, and traders weighed high inventories, weak demand growth, and elevated supply to European markets. The euro hovered at $1.08 as investors tempered rate cut expectations after inflation in the currency union eased less than expected in January. The yen traded near 150 against the US dollar after Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda said it was too early to consider rates, but because more data is needed on inflation front and annual wage negotiation. We We now review key developments in financial markets around the world last week. The S&P 500 index and the Nasdaq Composite extended monthly gains to the fourth month in a row in February and advanced 6.2% and 5.2% respectively, as artificial intelligence boom and rate cut expectations powered the market rally. European markets extended weekly gains and benchmark indices in Germany soared to a new record high, and in France hovered near a record high after inflation eased in the region and investors looked beyond rate uncertainty. The Nikkei 225 surpassed the previous high reached in 1989 and led world markets as foreign investors pumped more capital into Japanese stocks amid expectations of higher earnings after the yen traded at a 35-year low. China's stock markets extended weekly gains and advanced more than 5% in February on the hopes of more meaningful stimulus announcement from policymakers at the annual meeting of Chinese lawmakers. Indian market indices soared after the fourth quarter economic growth accelerated to 8.4%, and the government lifted its fiscal year annual growth outlook to 7.6% from 7.3%. Let us shift our attention to merger deals, market movers, and earnings updates from leading companies last week. Dell Technologies soared 25% after the personal computer and enterprise server market, or rather server maker, reported better than expected fourth quarter results. The company also indicated strong demand for its high-end servers that support artificial intelligence applications. New York Community Bancorp plunged after the regional bank reported weakness in its internal controls related to its internal loan review resulting from ineffective oversight and risk assessment, and announced a leadership change. Duolingo jumped after the language learning platform estimated strong revenues in the fiscal first quarter and full year after posting better than expected fourth quarter results. Snowflake plunged 23% after the company reported better than expected quarterly results and also announced the retirement of its chief executive. The company estimated weaker than expected product revenue outlook in the first quarter. Okta surged after the identity software management company reported better than expected quarterly results and estimated higher than expected quarterly results in the current quarter. Salesforce, the customer relationship management software developer, reported better than expected quarterly results but guided revenue growth of less than 9% in the current fiscal year. Best Buy, the electronics retailer, reported a smaller than expected decline in sales. Birkenstock, the newly listed German sandals company, reported higher revenue and narrowed its loss in the holiday quarter. Beiersdorf, the maker of Nivea, signaled slower revenue growth. Walt Disney announced the merger of its India operations with media assets held by Reliance Industries. First Solar, the solar panel maker, reported 30% increase in its net income in the fourth quarter, and the company guided annual revenue that met analyst expectations. Next week, investors in the U.S. are expecting non-farm payrolls to rise at 190,000 in January, slower than 353,000 jobs in December. Unemployment rate is expected to hold steady at 3.7% and wage growth to cool to 0.2%. Moreover, the JOLTS report is expected to show job openings shrank to 8.9 million following 2 months of increase in a row. In Europe, the ECB is expected to hold interest rates, and retail sales in the Eurozone is expected to turn around after decreasing at the fastest pace in December. Moreover, industrial production in Germany is expected to rebound, but in France, production is likely to shrink. Investors are also looking forward to the release of fourth quarter GDP in the Eurozone and international trade data for France and Germany. In Asia, all eyes will be on the policy measures announcements during the National People's Congress starting on Tuesday. Moreover, the statistical agency is scheduled to release international trade balance for the first 2 months in China. You can review daily U.S. and global financial market news, earnings releases, SEC filings, stock movers, and economic updates on ticker.com and 123jump.com. You can also get the latest financial books on redera.com and keep up with financial industry events on eventsinamerica.com. This is all for today, and we will see you